What is up, YouTube? Back in the garage for another day. So today we're gonna finally get these wheels put on this car. We're gonna let it down. We're gonna see how low she goes. Well, not as low as she can go, but with the settings we have, see how low it goes on the back side. You get the gist of what I'm saying. But I'm gonna make some adjustments here to make sure they're even on each side. We'll lower it down, see how low it gets in the front. Now I'm just looking for a fitment where the wheel is about, you know, just about a little bit less than a finger, I guess. Kind of flush with the fender is kind of what I'm looking for. And I'm curious as to how low it's going to go with the lowest setting on the rear end. So this is going to be the process, the tedious stuff. Got the wheels ready right there. So I guess I have to put on the hardware for the brakes real quick. Right here's the front, and these are the rear. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that. But I was looking on eBay and I found, last time I looked at mid pipes and everything on eBay, it was only showing Megan and some other real expensive brands. I looked again today and there's some of the Chinese knockoff brands and definitely a lower price. The Megans were like $500 something, almost $600 after shipping. But I can go with like one of those eBay brand exhaust pipes, and I can get a mid pipe for I think it was like $266 shipped. So I'm definitely gonna go with that because it's cheaper, and I don't really give a shit about the name brands on the exhaust, because with BMW, buy the name brand stuff, you're gonna pay an arm and a leg. And I'm just trying to get this thing going. I do have the Megan headers up on the engine, and those are a very beautiful piece. You can see it in there. Those are Megan's. They're really good, and I was really picky about the headers because they're gonna stay with the engine if I do plant this motor into the white M3, which I more than likely will do in the near future. But the mid pipe towards the back, I'm not too worried about the name brand. As long as it fits up like it should, good to go. So I'm definitely gonna do that. And I was looking at rear exhaust too, and I'm on the fence whether or not to buy the M3 dual exhaust. If I do that, then I'm gonna have to cut out part of the trunk area where the spare tire goes, right there. So good thing is Eric bought a Miller welder, so it's got the multi-process. It's got the MIG, TIG, and ARC, and it's really cool. So we'll have gas-fed MIG and TIG abilities here pretty soon. So now that I have that, and of course he said I can use it whenever, so I'm kind of on the fence of whether or not to go with a dual exhaust exit. And I was looking because I don't know, just feels right to me to have the dual exit on this car, but I'm still on the fence about it. I might still go with the single exit, but between the drive shaft and the mid pipe alone, when you add all those up, it's gonna be like $700-800 right there. So and that's with the cheap exhaust. So I'm just kind of on the fence. I think I'm just gonna get the drive shaft and the exhaust and mount those up, and then from there I'll look at where it sits under the car and see what type of pipes that I would need with a baffle or a muffler to make it work as a single, and price those things out. And if it's near the price of the dual exit, I might just end up buying the dual exit. And if I have to hack up the rear bumper to make it all work, I'll probably end up doing that. But decisions, I just don't know at this moment. So anyway, yeah, that's what's on my mind. Just trying to get this thing on the road as fast as I can, as cheap as I can. And still another big ticket item is going to be the headlights, and that's going to cost me quite a bit right there too. So it is what it is. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and mount these brackets up. The brackets, the way they work is, like I said before, they mount in right here in these holes, and they push against the brackets. The to hold them in place. That's pretty much how they work. So I'm gonna get the car up in the air. We're gonna go ahead and install these brackets. After we install the brackets, I'll make some quick adjustments to the front end, and we'll put the tires on and we'll lower her down and we'll see how she looks. There we go, we got the hardware mounted. Basically, it pulls on the caliper to the brackets, keeping them in place. Okay, another method that you can use whenever you're setting the preload on the springs, whenever you're twisting it and it's hard to tell, the resistance is it's kind of close. Just to double check your work, what I do is I like to take my measurements from the top hat of the spring. I measure from the top hat to the bottom of the adjuster nut on the bottom, and I get my measurement, which is right about 7 inches. A little bit before it, and then I double check it on this side just to make sure that everything is about even, and I'm right at about 7 inches as well. So that tells me that I have them adjusted equally. So now that I have the preload about correct, and then you don't know if the preload's correct until you drive the vehicle. So I'm just gonna go ahead now, twist these up. So now I know that the measurement from the top hat to this point is the same on each side. Now that's going to give me an accurate measurement from here to here in between. And I'll make my measurements there. And I'm going to try to get these even on both sides. Then I'm going to know that it's even. So when I lower the vehicle, it should be about the same. And not every chassis is perfectly square, so when I lower it, it'll probably be one side higher than the other, and that's whenever you start eyeballing it and measuring your distances from here, from the fender to the ground, or the fender to the rim. You just pick a point that's the same on each side, and then you measure that way. So I know that this measurement now is even on both sides. We're going to measure this right here on both sides, and then I'll lock them in place. We'll mount the wheels, and then we'll lower it down. Alright, if you look right here, we're just 1 mark over 4 1/4. Go around the other side. One mark over 4 1/4. So they're even on each side. Now I'm going to go ahead and undo. Go ahead and undo the sway bar end link, because I have to undo it on the other side. We'll just let that rest for now. Should be fine on the arms. We'll leave that like it is. So now that we got the measurements are true on each side, right here, even, preload's even. We're at a good point now to put the wheels on and see how she sits. All right, the moment of truth. How low does she go? I have no idea how low it's gonna sit, but my measurements were just a starting point to see how it does. I'm curious on the rear end though to see exactly how low it goes. See what happens. So it's sitting pretty high. on both ends. Let me give it a little bounce. And that sits pretty high for it being adjusted all the way down. Now when you drive it, it's gonna settle the suspension, but the rear end of this vehicle definitely needs to get a lot lower, and I have them on the lowest settings, so I don't know what else to do on that. Let's see. Yeah, about 2 inches would put me pretty close to where I would like it on the front. So I have to lower that front end 2 inches down on the sleeve. And this right here, about the same, 2 inches. Crazy. I know I got them installed the right way because it's the only way it could be installed on the rear. And I have the sleeves, the adjusting spanner nuts all the way down. So this one's kind of a dilemma to me. I don't understand what the hell's going on in the rear. Huh, that's crazy. Okay, well, it is what it is. I'll just have to figure out what I'm doing. And yeah. And I scratched my nose, if you're wondering what that dot is. I scratched my nose earlier, it was bleeding, so that's what I got, a little scab going on my nose. Oh well. We'll just have to figure it out. That's why we wrench, right? Not everything works out right the first time. That's always how it goes, you know. You always run into little snags. So front end's gonna be easy to fix and adjust. Rear end, I'm just gonna have to figure something out on that. I might just have to run just the springs itself. But if it sits right where the springs, if it sits right with just the springs, then I might just run just the springs. But I don't know. And I know it does settle, but it's not going to settle 2 inches whenever I drive it. But anyway. Okay. Alright. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Alright, another day. I've been thinking about this all night, about what I'm going to do about the rear end of this vehicle. And a couple options came to mind that I was thinking about. And what I'm going to try to do is remove the spanner nuts off the sleeve and just let the spring rest on the sleeve itself. See how much that lowers it, because if you notice on the stock springs here how the coil comes in very narrow, on the aftermarket ones they're a lot wider and open, so you have a lot more room to move around if I was to completely remove the bottom sleeves. So we're gonna go ahead and try it that way first, and if it works out and lowers it down, that's good. If it's not flush all the way to the fender, that's okay. I'll just look how close it gets. I mean, even if it's like that much right there, if you can see that towards the fender, I'm okay with that. But I'm kind of at the mercy of whatever it gives me on the rear end, because I cannot run the coils without the sleeves. It's gonna move around. If I hit a bump and the suspension, you know, fully extends, it could you know, the coil can actually fall out. So it makes me question the parts on these vehicles. The front end's perfect as far as the coilover kit goes, but the rear end, I don't even know if they threw me the right springs in. Was it springs off of a different series of a BMW? I don't know. I sent a message about it, but you know, a lot of these companies, once you give them positive feedback and everything, and you accept the package, they give you a really hard time returning it. So I'm kind of stuck with what I have. And then also, if they say, oh yeah, go ahead and return it, then it sets me that far back on the car waiting for parts to come in. And it could take up to a month because they have to deal with the suppliers in China. So that's what I'm up against, but the front end's going to be easy to go ahead and fix. We're going to get the adjustment on that. But I think what I'm going to do first is do the rear end, let it sit, see how far it goes down, take my measurement, and then adjust the front accordingly to what the rear setup is. Alright, this is how it's set up right now, how you would set up any basic rear coilover that is outside of a strut system. You have your coilover sleeve with your spanner nuts right here. As you can tell, it's set up exactly how it's supposed to be. So what I was speaking about earlier is I'm probably just going to remove these, well, probably no, I will remove these bottom spanner nuts right here, and seeing where the shock bottom is right here, hoping y'all can see that, it looks like it'll give me about 2 inches right here. So just having this coil resting on the base of the coil sleeve, it ought to give me close to the 2 inches that I need. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these and just put it back on without the spanner nuts and see how low it'll go after that. So to do that, basically I just have to undo the shocks on the bottom again, push this down and remove this, and then take these spanner nuts off and reinstall it. So that's what we're gonna do. We'll get that done, we'll put the wheels back on and everything, and then we'll lower the car back down and see how low she goes after that. You know what, I'm actually going to try it without the locking spanner nut on the bottom. I'm going to try them first with just this one on the base because it does sit wider than the base. So I'm going to try it with just this single spanner nut on the bottom. Alright, so I got the bottom locking ones off, and I went ahead with the top part and I tightened them down all the way as far as I could on the base. And looking at the bottom of the coils right on the bottom, they sit kind of wide and the bases are more narrow. The sleeve base is more narrow than the top perch, I guess, or the bottom spanner nut perch that's supposed to hold the spring. So that's why I decided to go this way. We're gonna see how far it drops, and if it's an adequate drop, then I'm just gonna leave it as it is, because I fear if I remove the other one, can't see in there, it's too dark. I fear if I remove the other one that it's gonna wedge itself and kind of get locked up eventually on the bottom of the sleeve. So we'll see what we got right now with this. I don't know what to expect. Hopefully it's a good enough drop, and I feel a lot better with this setup as opposed to removing them both. See how far she goes. Well, it's not as bad as it was last night. Still a wheel gap, but it's not so bad, and it will settle probably about an inch or so. Once you drive it, it'll probably settle about 3/4 of an inch to an inch, but definitely better. Alright, I made my adjustments on the front end. I got the sway bar end links in. You can see the bottom right there on the sway bar. I got them centered on the bottom where they mount to the sway bar. And then I went from there to find my center on the pivot where the top is. It's as close as I can get it. I made sure the measurements were equal on the spanner nuts here and here. Same thing right here and here. Got them centered. So I dropped it an inch here on the sleeve, and it's still going to compress down, so we'll see how well that sits, but I think that's going to give me just enough on the front, and I'm not looking for, you know, it to be flush anymore. I'm just looking for it to be even between the front and the rear now, but since we have what we have in the rear, I can't do much more about that. So I just want the front to look more in unison. If it has a slight more drop in the front, I'm okay with that. Just want the gaps to look somewhat equal. Alright guys, we got the suspension settled down now on the car. and we're about the same wheel gap as we are in the front as we are in the rear. But if you look at the bottom of the car, we actually slope down lower in the front. So based off of the rear end, that's kind of where we're at for now, but fine, because we didn't take away from the integrity of the suspension, and I didn't want to do that with the rear. Could I have taken the other spanner nut off the back? Yeah, absolutely, but I would have taken away from the integrity of the suspension, and that's what I don't want to do. It kind of defeats the purpose of having a suspension in there if you're not going to use it right. But I'm pleased enough for right now. You know, I did go with the cheaper suspension, and kind of it is what it is. You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit, like I tell my kids. But anyway, I think it's pretty good. The suspension feels solid. I mean, pushing down on the front feels good. Pushing down on the rear of the vehicle feels really good. And I'm really pleased with how the cross drill slotted rotors and the painted calipers and everything came out. So all the suspension now and brakes and everything are top notch, ready to go. We got the steel braided brake lines in there, so we have an upgrade. So I'm happy with it for now, and it is what it is. You know, sometimes, you know, you get these parts in and you're hoping for a certain thing, and then you get it and it's not what you expect. But anyway, you can't cry over spilt milk, so we're just gonna move on and just accept it for what it is. I'm still gonna have to do some camber adjustments and everything, but that's gonna be more or less my suspension, well, yeah, the alignment guy's problem. But I will, in the near future, just try to get the wheels as straight as I can, because you look right there, we're a little bit cambered in, some negative camber. I want to get that straightened out a little bit better before I bring it to him. It'll be quicker for him to get it done, quicker I get it back. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the overall results of everything, because now it's looking more like a car. We got the suspension under it now. It's good to go. And on the next episode, we're going to be mounting up that front oil cooler. And then after that, I just need to order the exhaust and the drive shaft and get that over with so we can get that in there. So I think that by the end of next month, we should have all the parts. I'm thinking next check, I'm going to order the drive shaft and the exhaust mid pipe. And then from there, I'll decide what I'm going to do on the rear end of the exhaust. But it still looks good. I'm still happy with it. And I do believe it's going to settle some more once I drive it. So not a bad deal. It's livable. It's a lot better than what it looked last night, so I'm happy there. And it's really looking like the car's coming together pretty good for a budget race car type build. And I'm really digging that Nardi steering wheel in there. That thing looks sick. So about adding everything up, about I say about $1,200 to $1,500 more is what I'm gonna have to spend in this damn project to get it to where I can start driving it. So I just gotta plan that budget and get those parts coming. And then we'll have this thing on the road for the first time and see how fast she goes, and I'm really excited for that. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and share, and I will see you guys on the next episode.